The vending machine ate my last dollar at 11:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve. I stood there in my hospital gown and borrowed robe, one hand pressed against the incision they'd barely closed 3 hours ago. The other smacking the glass like that might make the Snickers bar drop. It didn't. Nothing about tonight was going according to plan. Through the pediatric ward window behind me, I could see Ethan's little hand pressed against the glass of the family room. He was searching for me in the hallway. His 2-year-old face crumpled with the particular devastation of a child who'd been promised his mother would be right back. That was 17 minutes ago. The nurse, Valerie, with the kind eyes and galaxy Crocs, had offered to stay with them while I made my call, while I begged. My phone felt like lead in my pocket. The ICU waiting room was empty except for a janitor buffing floors and a teenager asleep across 3 chairs, her boyfriend's jacket as a blanket. I chose the corner seat, the one facing the parking lot, and watched brake lights disappear into the December dark. Somewhere out there, my parents were driving to their hotel. The Bellagio, probably. They always stayed at the Bellagio when they came to Vegas. They just weren't coming for me. I pulled up my mother's contact. The photo still showed her laughing at Jessica's baby shower 4 years ago, before she knew I was pregnant too, before her smile had started looking different when she aimed it at me and pressed call. She answered on the 4th ring. Behind her voice, I heard the unmistakable opening piano of Tiny Dancer. The pre-concert playlist. They were already at the venue. "Natasha, honey, we're about to go in." "Mom." My voice came out smaller than I'd intended. I cleared my throat, started again. They found internal bleeding from the C-section scar tissue. The surgeon said. I stopped, because how do you say I might die to your mother without sounding melodramatic? "It's serious. I need you to take the twins. Just for tonight. Just until—" "Oh, sweetie," her sigh crackled through the speaker. "Tonight, we're literally walking to our seats. Do you know what these tickets cost?" Behind me, someone's machines started beeping in urgent patterns. Nurses rushed past, their shoes squeaking on linoleum. I watched them disappear into a room. Wondered if that would be me in a few hours. If my machines would scream like that, while my children waited for a mother who wouldn't come back. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't, "Your father and I have been planning this for months." Her voice sharpened. "Jessica pulled strings to get us backstage passes. You can't just expect us to throw away a once-in-a-lifetime experience because you can't find a babysitter." The words landed like physical blows. Can't find a babysitter. As if I hadn't spent the last 6 months since James died calling every contact in my phone. As if I hadn't already been rejected by my 3 closest friends. 2 traveling for the holidays, 1 recovering from her own surgery. As if this was about convenience rather than crisis. "Mom, if something goes wrong, then the hospital will call us. That's what they do." Background noise swelled. The crowd, thousands of people gathering for joy. "We'll come by tomorrow after checkout. Love you, gotta run." The line went dead. I sat there holding my phone, staring at the black screen that reflected my face back at me. Pale, gaunt, expendable. Through the window, I could see the Strip in the distance. All those lights promising magic to everyone but me. My hands found the banking app without conscious thought. The automatic transfer to my parents. $2,500 scheduled for tomorrow morning. Same as every month for 3 years. Glowed on the screen. $75,000 of my grief, my late husband's life insurance, my children's security, funneled toward people who couldn't spare 6 hours. I thought about James. About how he'd held my hand through labor, and whispered, "You're the strongest person I know," when I thought I'd break apart. About how he'd believed I could do anything. About how wrong he'd been about my family. The janitor had finished buffing and moved on. The teenager's boyfriend had returned with coffee. Somewhere above me, my children were waiting. And somewhere across the city, my parents were singing along to Elton John. Their phones already silenced. Their daughter already forgotten. I pressed delete on the transfer. Then I blocked their numbers. Then I walked back to my children with nothing solved but everything changed. Ready to tell Valerie, yes, call your friend. Yes, I'll accept help from strangers. Yes, I'm ready to stop drowning. The vending machine's Snickers bar finally dropped as I passed. I didn't take it as a sign. But I took the candy bar, small victories. Olivia arrived at 1:03 a.m. wearing pajama pants covered in rubber ducks and carrying a duffel bag that looked like it had survived a war. She didn't knock. Valerie must have texted her the room number. just slipped through the door and immediately dropped to eye level with the twins. "Hello, small humans," she said, her voice soft but not syrupy. "I'm Olivia. I'm here to have adventures with you, while your very brave mom goes to help the doctors." Emily, always my cautious one, pressed closer to my leg. But Ethan, my fearless boy who'd inherited his father's curiosity about everything, tilted his head and asked, "What kind of adventures?" "The kind with snacks and stories about dragons." Olivia pulled a worn book from her bag. "And maybe some magic tricks if you're still awake." I watched my son's eyes widen and felt something in my chest fracture. This stranger was offering my children more warmth in 30 seconds than my parents had managed in 2 years. Valerie touched my elbow. "Or's ready when you are. Dr. Chen says we should start soon. Your blood pressure's dropping." The room tilted slightly. I hadn't realized how much I'd been holding myself together through sheer will until someone gave me permission to fall apart. "Can I have a minute?" My voice sounded distant, underwater. Valerie nodded, squeezed my shoulder, and stepped out with the quiet competence of someone who'd witnessed 1,000 private goodbyes. I knelt in front of the twins, slowly because my abdomen felt like broken glass, and pulled them close. Emily's hair smelled like the strawberry shampoo we'd used this morning, a lifetime ago. Ethan's hand found mine, his fingers sticky with something unidentifiable. "Mommy has to go help the doctors fix something," I said, keeping my voice steady through sheer force. "Olivia is going to stay with you. She's going to keep you safe." "When you come back?" Ethan asked. If I come back, my brain supplied. There was always risk. The consent forms I'd signed had been very clear about the ways bodies could fail, the complications that could spiral, the percentage of patients who didn't wake up. Tomorrow morning, I lied, because 2-year-olds need certainty more than truth. "When you wake up, I'll be here." Emily's lip trembled. She understood more than she could articulate, had understood since the day we'd buried her father that sometimes people leave and don't come back. "Promise?" I looked at Olivia over their heads. She gave me a small nod, a silent contract passing between us. "I've got them. No matter what happens, I've got them. I promise to try my absolute hardest," I said, which was the most honest thing I could offer. Olivia stood smoothly, clapping her hands once. "Okay, dragons. Who wants to help me build the most epic blanket fort this hospital has ever seen? I'm thinking we make it so big that even the nurses will be jealous." The transition happened faster than I expected. One moment my children were clinging to me, and the next they were being swept into Olivia's orbit, her easy confidence making them forget their fear. She caught my eye as I stood, slowly, painfully, and mouthed 2 words, "Bank information." I blinked, confused. "For payment," she clarified quietly, while Ethan dragged chairs together. "We'll sort it after, but I can't afford." The words tumbled out before I could stop them. The reality of my finances was a constant hum beneath everything else. James's life insurance dwindling, my freelance graphic design barely covering rent, medical bills I hadn't even opened yet stacking up on my kitchen counter, and now, no more parental subsidy to ease my guilt while draining my account. "We'll figure it out," Olivia said firmly. "My rate is flexible for emergency placements. Some people pay full price. Some people pay in homemade cookies. One family paid me in graphic design work." She raised an eyebrow. "You do design, right?" Valerie mentioned. The absurdity of negotiating payment terms while potentially dying hit me sideways. I started laughing, high and slightly unhinged, and couldn't stop. Olivia just smiled. "That's the morphine talking. Go let them cut you open. We're good here." The pre-op nurse appeared in the doorway with a wheelchair. "Hospital policy," she explained, even though the OR was only 2 corridors away. I lowered myself into it, every movement a reminder that my body was failing in ways I didn't fully understand. As they wheeled me away, I looked back once. Olivia had both twins on her lap, the dragon book open between them, her voice weaving a story about a princess who saved herself. Emily was already leaning against her shoulder. Ethan's eyes were heavy. They'd be okay without me. The thought should have brought comfort. Instead, it felt like drowning. The OR was colder than I expected. Bright lights, chrome surfaces, masked faces moving with choreographed precision. Someone adjusted my fourth, someone else asked me to count backward from 10. 9, I whispered, thinking about my blocked phone and deleted transfers and the bridges I'd burned in a vending machine hallway. 8, thinking about James, and how he'd hate that I'd waited so long to get help. 7. Thinking about my parents in their Bellagio suite, probably drunk on free champagne, definitely not thinking about me. 6. Thinking about the twins and whether they'd remember me if. 5. Thinking about nothing. The darkness took me somewhere without pain, without fear, without the constant exhausting arithmetic of being not quite enough for anyone who was supposed to love me. Somewhere machines beeped. Somewhere a surgeon made the first cut. Somewhere my children slept in a stranger's arms. And somewhere my parents sang along to Rocket Man, their phones dark, their conscience clear, their daughter bleeding on a table they'd never see. Small mercies. I woke to my father's voice before I opened my eyes. Absolutely unacceptable. The bank called us at 7 in the morning on Christmas Day about a rejected payment. Do you have any idea how embarrassing? Sir, you need to lower your voice. Valerie's tone was steel-wrapped in professionalism. Your daughter just came out of a 4-hour surgery. I don't care if she had her entire intestines rearranged. She doesn't get to humiliate us like this. My eyelids felt sewn shut. The morphine made everything syrupy and slow, but I could hear perfectly my father's righteous indignation, my mother's theatrical sniffling, the rustle of Valerie's scrubs as she physically positioned herself between them and my bed. How did you even get in here? Valerie demanded. We're her parents. We have rights. My mother's voice, dripping with performative devastation. We came as soon as the concert ended. 17 hours ago, Valerie said flatly. The silence that followed was exquisite. I forced my eyes open. The room swam into focus, harsh morning light, wilted flowers someone had sent, from work probably, and my parents standing at the foot of my bed like I owed them an explanation for surviving. My mother looked perfect, hair styled, makeup flawless, wearing the designer blouse Jessica had gifted her for her birthday. My father still had his backstage pass lanyard around his neck, a laminated badge of his priorities. You're awake. My mother rushed forward, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away before she could touch me. The movement sent lightning through my abdomen, but it was worth it to see her face crumple with manufactured hurt. Natasha, sweetheart, we need to talk about this money situation. Get out. My voice came out raspy from intubation, but clear enough. My father's jaw tightened. Excuse me? You heard me. Get out. We have every right to be here, my mother started. You have no rights. I struggled to sit up, ignoring Valerie's gentle protest. You lost those when you chose Elton John over your grandchildren. When you couldn't spare 6 hours during a medical emergency but can show up the next day to yell about money. My father's face went red. That money is ours. We've structured our entire retirement around your commitment. I never committed to anything. The words felt like venom and relief mixed together. You guilt-tripped me into payments after Dad's early retirement. I made air quotes, wincing at the movement, which we all know was him getting forced out for being impossible to work with. You called it helping family. I called it hoping you'd finally act like parents. My mother's mask slipped. For one brief moment, I saw genuine anger flash across her face before she smoothed it away. After everything we've done for you, name one thing. I leaned forward, machines beeping in protest. One single thing you've done for me in the last 5 years that wasn't obligatory or performative. One time you showed up when it was inconvenient for you. They looked at each other. That familiar silent communication. My father opened his mouth, closed it. Opened it again. We raised you, my mother finally said, her voice small. That's not love. That's the legal minimum. The heart monitor accelerated. Valerie moved closer, her hand hovering near the call button. But I wasn't having a medical emergency. I was having an emotional exorcism. Do you know what the surgeon told me before I went under? I continued, my voice gaining strength. She said I'd been ignoring symptoms for weeks. That I'd probably been in pain for months, but kept pushing through because I had no support system. Because I was too busy working to pay your mortgage while raising 2 toddlers alone. My father's voice turned cold. So this is about blame. You want to blame us for your poor health decisions. I want you to take responsibility for one goddamn thing in your lives. The profanity seemed to shock them more than anything else I'd said. Good. I'd spent 33 years being the good daughter, the understanding one, the one who absorbed their disappointment and asked for seconds. Where are the twins? My mother asked suddenly. looking around as if just noticing their absence. Safe. With someone who actually cares about them? You left our grandchildren with a stranger? Her voice pitched up, scandalized. The laugh that escaped me was sharp enough to cut. You mean like I asked you to do? Yes, Mom. I hired a professional nanny who's been caring for them for 20 hours while I was opened up on an operating table. She's read them stories, made them breakfast, and according to the text Valerie showed me, I gestured to the nurse, taught them a song about the days of the week. She's done more grandmothering in one night than you've done in 2 years. My father pulled out his phone, fingers shaking slightly. We're calling the police. You can't just leave children with random... Try it, I said quietly. Please. Call them. I'd love to explain to law enforcement why I had to hire emergency childcare. I'll show them the call logs, the texts, the voicemails where you told me to stop being dramatic about internal bleeding. His finger hovered over the screen. He didn't dial. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, each word deliberate. You're going to leave. You're going to figure out your financial situation without me. And you're going to seriously consider whether you actually want to be grandparents, or if you just want the Facebook bragging rights. Natasha, my mother tried one more time. I almost died last night. My voice cracked. I coded once on the table. Did you know that? Dr. Chen told me this morning. My heart stopped for 42 seconds while a stranger held my children and you sang Benny and the Jets. The silence was absolute, so no. No more money, no more access to my kids, no more pretending we're a family when you've only ever seen me as a resource. I settled back against the pillows, suddenly exhausted. Valerie, please escort them out. With pleasure, Valerie said, stepping forward. My parents didn't move immediately. They stood there, probably waiting for me to crack, to apologize, to beg them to stay like I always had before. I closed my eyes instead. Eventually, I heard shuffling. The door opening, my mother's voice, distant. You'll regret this. Already don't, I whispered to the empty room. The email came 3 days after I was discharged, forwarded by 7 relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Subject line, a daughter's betrayal. I read it on my couch while Olivia played alphabet games with the twins in the next room. My laptop balanced on a pillow because sitting up straight still felt like being stabbed. My father had written a masterpiece of manipulation, a 1,000-word tragedy where I was the villain and they were victims of my sudden, inexplicable cruelty. After supporting Natasha through her husband's death, opening our home and hearts, we never imagined she would abandon us in our time of need. We gave her everything. Sacrificed our own security to ensure she had a foundation. I made it to the 3rd paragraph before my hand started shaking. There was no mention of the surgery, no mention of Christmas Eve or concert tickets or their refusal to help. Just a carefully crafted narrative of ungrateful daughter cuts off saintly parents without warning. My phone buzzed, then again, then continuously. Aunt Patty, is this true? Did you really stop helping your parents? Cousin Mark, wow. Didn't think you were that type of person. Uncle Dave, family is forever, Natasha. You should reconsider. I watched the messages accumulate like evidence of my guilt, each one a small vote in my parents' favor. My finger hovered over the reply button. I could explain. I could defend myself. I could don't. Olivia appeared in the doorway, Emily on her hip. Whatever you're thinking of doing, don't. They're lying to everyone. I turned the laptop toward her, making me look like I know what they're doing. She set Emily down gently, took the laptop, and closed it with deliberate care. And I know what you're thinking. That if you just explain hard enough, tell your truth loud enough, someone will finally see you. But Natasha? People who want to misunderstand you will always find a way. So I just let them win? You let them tire themselves out. She sat beside me, close but not touching. Lies require constant maintenance. Truth just sits there, waiting. That night, I couldn't sleep. The incision burned, but worse was the phantom pain in my chest, the place where family was supposed to live. I found myself scrolling through old photos, me at 7, gap-toothed and hopeful, trying to show my mom a drawing. Her face turned away toward Jessica. Me at 16, holding my first-place debate trophy, my parents checking their phones. My wedding day, James kissing my forehead, while my mother complained about the heat. Every image was a small excavation of neglect. Around 2 a.m., Jessica called. I'm at a hotel, she said without preamble. I just had the worst fight of my life with them. I said nothing, waiting. They showed me their email, before they sent it. Her voice was raw. I told them it was a lie, that they needed to tell the truth about what happened on Christmas Eve, and Dad— She stopped, breathing hard. Dad said, "The truth is whatever maintains family unity." Like it was obvious, like I was stupid for not understanding. Jess, I'm so sorry. The words came out broken. I've been complicit in this my whole life. They'd put you down and I'd just sit there. Because it was easier. Because I got to be the favorite, and you got to be the disappointment, and I told myself that wasn't my fault. Through the phone, I heard her crying, not the pretty performative tears our mother specialized in, but ugly, gasping sobs. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispered. "I don't know how to undo 30 years of being their golden child while you suffered." "You can't," I said quietly. "You can only decide what happens next." Silence stretched between us, filled with everything we'd never said. "I want to know them," she finally said. "Ethan and Emily. I want to be their aunt for real, not just in theory. And I want—" her voice cracked. "I want to know my sister. If you'll let me—" I thought about trust and how it's built in increments, about how people can change but only if they do the work, about how I'd spent my life accepting scraps and calling it love. "Actions, not words," I said. "Show up, consistently. No promises about being different, just be different." "Okay," she breathed. "Okay, I can do that." After we hung up, I opened my laptop again. The family email sat there, toxic and viral. 12 more relatives had weighed in, most siding with my parents based on their version of events. But there were other messages too. Cousin Michael, Uncle Rob just posted on Facebook about his new boat. Weird financial crisis. My father's college roommate, "Hey Natasha, your dad tried borrowing money from me last month. Said you'd co-sign. Seemed off. You okay?" And then, the one that made my breath catch, Great Aunt Helen, 93 years old and sharper than anyone gave her credit for. "Your parents pulled this same stunt with your Uncle Richard in 1987. He stopped paying their bills, and they told everyone he was mentally unstable. Ignore them, darling, heal." The truth was surfacing without me lifting a finger. I crafted one response, sent it to the family email chain. "I underwent emergency surgery on Christmas Eve with life-threatening complications. My parents refused to watch their grandchildren because they had concert tickets. I can no longer subsidize the lifestyle of people who value entertainment over my life. I wish them well. No justifications, no defensive explanations, just facts, clean and simple." Then I archived the entire thread and turned off my phone. In the next room, Ethan cried out, "A nightmare." Before I could move, I heard Olivia's gentle voice soothing him back to sleep. A stranger doing the work of family because family had chosen not to. I pressed my hand against my incision, feeling the raised edges of healing skin. My body was knitting itself back together, despite the violence done to it. Maybe I could too. But first, I had to stop bleeding for people who only noticed when it stained their hands. The knock came at 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, 5 weeks post-surgery. I knew it was them before I opened the door. Maybe it was intuition, maybe it was the particular quality of desperation in the knock. Not aggressive, not tentative, but something worse, entitled. My father stood on my porch holding a manila folder. My mother clutched her purse like a shield. Behind them, the February rain turned my driveway into a mirror reflecting their car. Not the Lexus they'd had at Christmas, but a 10-year-old Honda. "We need 10 minutes, my father said. "Not please. Not if you have time. Just a statement of what he believed he deserved." I should have closed the door, should have protected the peace I'd been building brick by careful brick. But there was something broken in his posture that made me step aside. They entered like refugees, smelling of rain and something else. Fear, maybe. Failure. The twins. My mother started, glancing toward the hallway. At the park with Olivia. I remained standing, didn't offer them seats, didn't offer anything. My father opened the folder. Inside, foreclosure notices, final warnings, a cashier's check request form with my name printed in the payer line. He'd filled it out already. $47,000, dated today. "This is what we need to keep the house," he said. Just like that. No preamble, no apology, no acknowledgement of the last 5 weeks of silence and slander. I stared at the number. $47,000. More than half of what remained from James's life insurance, the money I'd earmarked for the twins' future, for emergencies, For the security my husband died believing he'd provided. No, I said. My mother's face did something complicated. Natasha, please, just listen. I said no. We'll lose everything. My father's voice cracked on the last word. The house, our equity, our retirement. You have no retirement. The words came out surgical, precise. You borrowed against your future and spent it on boats and concerts and timeshares. You turned my grief into an ATM. You chose Elton John over my life. That's not fair, my mother tried. You know what's not fair? My voice rose before I could stop it. Having your heart stop on an operating table, while the people who made you sing Crocodile Rock in a stadium. Waking up alone because the strangers had more compassion than your own blood. Watching your children learn to trust a woman they'd just met because their grandparents taught them that family means abandonment. The silence was thick enough to choke on. My father set the folder on my coffee table. We made a mistake. One mistake. How long are you going to punish us? And that's when something inside me, something that had been cracked since Christmas Eve, held together with surgical staples and stubborn will, finally shattered. You think this is punishment? I laughed, high and broken. You think I cut you off to hurt you? God, you're so deep in your own narrative you can't see reality. I moved closer, ignoring the pull of healing tissue. I didn't do this to you. I did this for me. For my children. To stop drowning in the acid of your need. My mother's makeup was running. Real tears or strategic ones. I couldn't tell anymore and realized I didn't care. We have nowhere to go, she whispered. You have options. You've always had options. Sell the boat. Oh wait, you already did. At a loss because you bought it with money you didn't have. Sell the timeshare. Downsize. Get jobs. I picked up the folder, held it out to them. What you don't have is me, not my money, not my labor, not my children. My father's hand shook as he took the folder back. You're really going to let us be homeless? You're not going to be homeless. You're going to be inconvenienced. There's a difference you've never learned because I kept saving you from consequences. We're your parents. Then act like it. The words exploded out of me, years of swallowed hurt finally finding air. Act like parents show up when it's hard. Choose me once, just once, when it's not convenient. Love me without a price tag. The apartment went quiet except for my ragged breathing and the rain against the windows. My mother reached for me. I stepped back. I almost died, I said, quieter now, more terrible for the softness. Did you even read the surgical report Jessica sent you? They opened me up and found my insides held together with scar tissue and hope. The surgeon said if I'd waited one more day, I would have gone septic. One day, I pulled up my shirt, showed them the angry red line bisecting my abdomen, 10 inches of proof that I had almost ceased to exist. You chose a concert over this, over knowing if I survived, over meeting your grandchildren's eyes, and promising them their mother would come home. My voice broke. So no, you can't have my money, you can't have my guilt, you can't have any more of me. I'm all used up. My father looked at the check request form in his hands like it might spontaneously fill itself out. When it didn't, he carefully placed it back in the folder. You'll regret this, he said, but there was no conviction in it, just muscle memory from a lifetime of manipulation. I regret not doing it sooner. They left without another word. I watched from the window as they got into their downgraded Honda, as my mother buckled her seatbelt with shaking hands, as my father sat in the driver's seat for a full minute before starting the engine. I waited for guilt to crash over me, for the familiar ache of disappointing them, of failing to be enough. It didn't come. What came instead was lighter, cleaner, like the first breath after breaking the surface of water you've been drowning and for so long you forgot what oxygen felt like. The door opened. Olivia herded the twins inside, both soaked and laughing. Emily ran to me with a fistful of wet leaves. Ethan had a worm in a cup, proudly displayed like treasure. We saw your parents leaving, Olivia said carefully, reading my face. They came to ask for money, and I said no. She smiled, not with pity or concern, but with something fiercer. Pride, maybe. Good. How do you feel? I looked at my children, rain-soaked and alive and holy, completely mine. At the apartment we'd made into a home. At the scar on my abdomen that proved I'd survived despite everyone who should have helped me but didn't. Free, I said. And for the first time in 33 years, I meant it. Spring came slowly to our new house, but it came. I discovered the garden on moving day. hidden behind overgrown weeds and a collapsed trellis choked with neglect but stubbornly alive, tomato plants gone wild, herbs I couldn't name, a rose bush that had given up blooming but refused to die. Needs work, Diana said, helping me carry boxes while the twins helped by unpacking toys in every room simultaneously. But the bones are good. I thought about bones a lot those days. How they knit together after breaking, how they could bear weight again, differently than before but stronger for the fracture. 8 months after my surgery, I knelt in the dirt, slowly, carefully, my scar tissue still protesting certain movements, and began pulling weeds. The twins helped, mostly by relocating worms and naming beetles. Ethan had become obsessed with insects since Olivia bought him a magnifying glass. Emily narrated everything in her expanding vocabulary, a constant stream of consciousness that felt like medicine. "Mama, why these ones dead?" Emily pointed at the brown stalks. "They're not dead, baby, just sleeping, we're waking them up." It wasn't entirely true, but neither was it a lie. Some things die, some things hibernate. Learning the difference takes time. Jessica came by most Saturdays now, bringing mulch or seeds or her presence, which turned out to be the most valuable contribution. We were learning each other slowly, two women realizing they'd been raised in different families despite sharing a childhood home. "Mom called me again," she said one afternoon, helping me plant marigolds while the twins napped. "She wanted me to talk sense into you about family reconciliation. And?" I didn't look up from the soil. I told her family reconciles when both sides want to heal, not when one side wants to stop experiencing consequences. She paused. She hung up on me. "I'm sorry. Don't be." Turns out being the golden child just meant I had prettier chains. She wiped dirt on her jeans. "I'm learning to walk without them." We worked in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes after difficult conversations and chosen trust. The letter arrived in June, forwarded by Jessica, who'd apparently been designated the family intermediary despite not wanting the job. My mother's handwriting, shaky but legible. "I've spent 6 months in therapy trying to understand why you won't forgive us. Dr. Morrison keeps asking what I think I need forgiveness for. I keep telling her you overreacted. She keeps ending sessions early. Your father had a health scare last week, just high blood pressure, but it frightened us. He's working at Home Depot now. I'm cleaning houses. We're living in a 2-bedroom condo near the airport. I'm not apologizing because I still don't think we were entirely wrong, but I'm writing because Dr. Morrison says I need to acknowledge that maybe you weren't entirely wrong either. The twins must be getting big." I read it twice, searching for the growth my therapist kept insisting people were capable of. Found only the same self-centered inability to see past her own narrative. But there was something in the last line, a question mark disguised as a statement, a tentative reaching toward grandchildren she'd never bothered to know. I didn't respond. Not yet, maybe not ever. Instead, I pressed the letter between pages of the gardening book Olivia had given me, preserved like evidence of incremental change. Someday I might need proof that transformation happens slowly, or that some people remain calcified in their own stories. For now, I had tomatoes to stake. The twins burst through the back door, Olivia trailing behind with popsicles. Ethan launched himself at me with the full-body trust of a child who'd never been dropped. Emily showed me a dandelion, already gone to seed. "Make wish, Mama," she commanded. I held the fragile sphere, thought about wishes and wants, and the difference between what we're given and what we build. Thought about my parents in their small condo, my father's pride swallowed by an orange Home Depot apron. Thought about justice and compassion, and how they don't always coexist. Mostly I thought about the children in my garden, alive and laughing, safe in a way I'd never been. "What you wish for?" Emily asked as the seeds scattered in the breeze. "Nothing," I said honestly. "I have everything I need." That night, after bedtime stories and negotiations about water cups and one more hug, I stood in the twins' doorway watching them sleep. Ethan had kicked off his blankets again. Emily clutched the stuffed giraffe she'd had the night of my surgery, the night that had become our family's dividing line between before and after. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "I saw your memorial website's portfolio. You're very talented. You always were." I stared at the words, looking for the hook. The inevitable ask, the manipulation. It didn't come. Just those 2 sentences floating in the digital space between us. I typed and deleted 3 responses before settling on, "Thank you." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was just acknowledgement that we both still existed, orbiting each other at a safe distance. Maybe that was enough. Maybe it would never be enough. Maybe someday the twins would ask why they didn't know their grandparents and I'd have to explain how love requires more than biology. But tonight, in my house with its healing garden and chosen family and hard-won peace, I didn't need to solve that future. I just needed to close their door softly, check the locks, pour myself tea, and sit on the porch watching fireflies write light into the darkness. James used to say that surviving wasn't the same as living. That trauma could either bury you or compost into something that helps things grow. I'd spent 33 years buried. Now I was growing. The garden wasn't perfect. Weeds kept returning. Some plants refused to thrive. And I still didn't know what half of them were called. But it was mine. Earned in surgical staples and blocked phone numbers, and the radical act of choosing myself. Somewhere across town, my parents existed in their diminished kingdom, learning or not learning, changing or calcifying. Here, in my imperfect garden with my sleeping children and my healing scars, I was finally, impossibly, enough. The fireflies blinked their Morse code love letters to the night. I blinked back, still here, still standing, still blooming, small victories, the best kind.